Roundtable. Joining us, Republican strategist Ford O'Connell, also with a senior political contributor to Fords.com, Rick Ungar. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, the bromance
Thank
is
you
over.
for having us.
Well, remember, guys, when Ted Cruz said that he wanted to liquidate his entire net worth to fund his campaign, right? Well, the New York Times reports, I knew you were going to do that. Cruz didn't disclose up to $1 million loan, excuse me, from Goldman Sachs for his first Senate campaign. Now, Cruz says he's been transparent about the loans, disclosing them time and time again during multiple filings, but he says he'll amend the reports if, in fact, he finds they were not filed exactly as the FEC requires. So, Rick, let's start with you. Could this spell a little trouble for Cruz?
No, I really don't think so. I mean, I know I should probably be getting all over him for it since I'm not the biggest fan of Ted Cruz, but no, this does not strike me as a particularly big deal. Filing mistakes happen all the time. This is not going to upset the voting public, I don't think.
Well, Rick, I got to disagree with you because it's not necessarily the crime here, but it's what it reminds people that Ted Cruz may not actually be. He claims to be this outsider from Texas, but it gives folks like Donald Trump an opportunity to remind the Republican voters that, A, Ted Cruz has a wife that is on a leave of absence from Goldman Sachs, which doesn't exactly represent Main Street values. He's also caught. Now he's having to play catch up and explain everything.
Which is in New York, the company.
And I think this is going to play big time into tonight's debate, a very unfortunate time.
I mean, John, are you sure it actually helps Donald Trump? Are you sure it doesn't help Marco Rubio, who basically is trying to say that Ted Cruz is not a straight talker? And how can you be a populist running against Wall Street when you're taking money from Goldman Sachs and from Citibank?
Well, I think it helps. It helps everybody but Ted Cruz. It's going to be a big talking point tonight. And, again, it also gives them a chance to remind the voters that Ted Cruz has also worked for every branch of the federal government. And, this really undercuts his entire image.
Go ahead, Rick.
I think you got to be a little bit careful here. I think yes, there's definitely a point to be made that Ted Cruz is far more establishment than he would like you to believe. Princeton, Harvard, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think that it makes him Wall Street. I can't believe I'm defending Ted Cruz. It does not make him Wall Street because he got a loan from a Wall Street investment bank, especially when his wife worked there. He paid the loan off. I think that people are reaching if they think that this is going to cause him harm. Now, could it cause him some harm that people begin to realize that he's more establishment than he lets on? Yeah, but even that I don't think is going to be a major issue if you're inclined to like him.
Actually, though, I have to clarify something you said, Rick. The Times says he still owes between $50,000 and $100,000 to Goldman Sachs.
How much was the loan?
They said between $750,000 up to.
Yeah.
And Ford, but
that makes me think he's a responsible guy. He pays back his debts.
Right.
Nobody's questioning that. But when you go to Iowa and when you're any one of these candidates, whether it's Marco Rubio, Chris Christie, Jeb Bush, or anybody else, and all you have to say is Ted Cruz and Goldman Sachs, that's going to play very well into all of his rivals' hands, right, Ford?
Well, they could have done that before.
That's absolutely right. If Ted Cruz doesn't win Iowa,
Sorry,
go
ahead, Ford.
It doesn't matter. If Ted Cruz loses Iowa, his nomination is done. This is something that throws doubt into it, just like Donald Trump saying Ted Cruz is not a natural-born citizen. 32% of Iowa Republican voters don't think someone born outside the United States should be running for president. So therefore, a lot of this plays into Donald Trump's hands. And if Ted Cruz doesn't win Iowa, guess what? He's likely kaput when it comes to winning the nomination.
Rick, which do you think will be a bigger issue? The whole where he was born or bringing up his filing mistakes? Possibly.
Clearly, the whole where he was born. That's a much bigger issue. Again, I think he's getting kind of a bad rap there because I've done a lot of research on this, and I think he's probably okay. But that's going to be a much bigger issue for him.
I've been pretty surprised how I thought that the sun was going to set pretty quickly on that issue, but it hasn't.
Well, I think planting that idea that it could be an issue is enough to get people worried. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ford, but what do you think?
I absolutely think that where he's born in the perception of people's minds is a far bigger issue than the Goldman Sachs deal. But remember, this is all about perception in terms of who wins this. And if Ted Cruz does not win Iowa, it's going to be a major problem. And that's why I cited the poll earlier about Iowa voters. Donald Trump is very good at knowing what the voters don't know and using it as a political weapon against his rivals.
Yeah, and I really don't think the Goldman Sachs issue would have been much of anything had it not been for Ted Cruz coming out just a couple of days ago and hitting Donald Trump for the quote-unquote New York values.
Right.
And when Goldman Sachs is based there in New York City, it kind of just really undercuts that whole thing. I think Ted Cruz...
But that's why Cruz is swinging back, though. Remember what
Right.
New York values means. It's a dog whistle to Republicans because New York is a liberal cesspool that God doesn't live within 10 miles of.
Rick,
and to a
what do
lot
you
of
think?
Iowa Republicans, that's what it means.
You're live from New York, right, Rick? How do you feel about that?
I think that's why Rick is defending Ted Cruz.
Maybe for the first time today ever, I like something Donald Trump said when he stood up for New York.
So
I
let's
don't
get this
like
straight.
those
You
attacks
defended
on New
Cruz
York.
and you like something that Donald Trump said.
We have,
I know,
we
it's
have,
a
the,
very
we have the
strange
ability
day.
to do
New Year.
that here on Newsmax. Now, gentlemen, hang tight. We're coming right
It's a
back. We're
strange
going
day.
to talk a little bit
it won't
about
happen again.
we're going to talk a little bit about the Democratic side of the debate. We'll finally give Rick something for him to talk about. I guess we already did. But what's Hillary Clinton up to? She is full-out panic mode with Bernie Sanders nipping at her heels. We're coming right back.
Welcome back to Newsmax Now, and rejoining us for our roundtable once again, Republican strategist Ford O'Connell and senior political contributor to Forbes.com, Rick Ungar. All right, guys, former President Bill Clinton took to the campaign trail yesterday in New Hampshire. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
Who's the best person to take the fight to the Republican based on a proven ability to stand their ground and to find common ground? It's not a close question. The Republicans have worked so hard to demonize it for the last year. They're basically screaming at you, please nominate somebody else.
In his speech, Clinton boasts of Hillary's economic plan. But Rick, as effective as Bill Clinton was as a surrogate for Barack Obama in 2012, I am somewhat underwhelmed by his ability to be a surrogate for Hillary Clinton this time around. What say you, sir?
Oh, I think you sell Bill Clinton short at your own peril. I think he can do just fine as a surrogate. Yeah, he's probably the best person to have of anybody in the country. He's been laid back, but I think that's by design, very much so, in fact. Remember, he's the one who's been put under attack for his past.
Right. That
and
said,
I think he's being very careful.
That said, he has he's been picking and choosing his spots, and in the meantime, Hillary Clinton's poll numbers are tanking right now. Bernie Sanders within the margin of error, according to the Des Moines Register poll today.
Make it look like he's not running for
disagree.
president that she is. I think that's why.
Let me finish here.
Go ahead.
First of all, her poll numbers aren't tanking, and second of all, if you look closely at them, where she's losing ground, particularly in Iowa, she's not losing it to Bernie Sanders. She's losing it to undecideds. Now, that's still a problem for her, but that's a very big difference than losing it to her competitor. Hopefully, if you're a Hillary Clinton supporter, she can get those back from undecided. It is a problem, but tanking, no, not even close.
She's down 9 points. Sanders is up points. Up 4 points. Ford, go ahead.
Look, Bernie Sanders is doing better than anyone thought. He's certainly surging. I still think Hillary Clinton's going to win the nomination. Here's the point, though. To win the general election, she has two assets, being a woman and Bill Clinton. And Bill Clinton was not meant to come out on the trail this early. Unfortunately, he has to because they want to put this nomination away quickly so they can focus on the Republicans versus having this dragged out. And right now, it's not going according to plan as they would like. In fact, I would go beyond New Hampshire and Iowa and say that Bernie Sanders could even win Nevada.
Wow. Okay.
I doubt that. I seriously doubt that.
Well, we'll see what happens. Former
We
President.
want to make one of those famous Romney bets on the air?
Yeah, go ahead. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll make it for
$10,000.
10 grand, but I will make the bet because Nevada's all about the unions.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and put this one in our save reel, and we'll bring it back up when Nevada comes back around.
Okay.
No loans. Don't take any loans out, all right, guys? Former President Bill Clinton is still as favorable as ever, though, because Washington Post new poll has his favorability rating at 53%. And when it's split up at the bases, Democrats are 83%, makeup independents 52%, Republicans are 28%. So you said, Hillary basically had no choice but to bring Bill in now, that this is not the way it was supposed to happen. He has to be kind of careful now because Trump has kind of been going after him and he's been kind of holding back, trying not to respond to some of those attacks. What does he have to do now? How does he play it safe?
Well, he never wanted to
Who you
respond to Trump's attacks because the reason is that he doesn't want to give the eventual Republican nominee ammo, and that's why he's basically pushing Trump away and saying, "I'll respond when he's a nominee." But because of the fact that the politics of rape and sexual assault have advanced so much, particularly in the media, Bill Clinton is eventually going to have to answer these questions, and that's why Hillary doesn't want him out on the primary campaign trail as much as she may need him.
So you think he's going to have to answer those questions? Rick, do you agree?
Yeah, at some point, if she is the nominee, he will have to answer those questions, and I think he'll be ready to do so. Whether or not we'll all be satisfied with those answers is a very different thing. He's handling it exactly right. He does not want to push these buttons because you can be sure that the Republicans have some of these women all ready to go public yet again. So he's handling it right. It will be an issue, though, down the road. I'm not going to pretend otherwise.
I think they made the same.
But he also doesn't want to answer him while Trump is still in the race because Trump will push the envelope in a way that no other Republican will on this issue, and it won't ding him.
Understandable, too. It also seems like they may have made the same mistake that they made in 2008, waiting too long to get aggressive with the candidate, underestimating Bernie Sanders the same way they underestimated Barack Obama. What say you, Ford?
Very different situation.
Absolutely
Barack Obama
not,
was
because
not
the
a
deal is Bernie
self-identified
Sanders
socialist.
needs African Americans, and that just ain't going to happen. Until Bernie Sanders can find a way to get anybody other than white progressives, then we'll discuss whether or not he has a legitimate shot at the Democratic nomination.
I'm not saying there are not differences here, but I do feel like they underestimated Bernie Sanders like a lot of people did.
I don't think they're underestimating Bernie Sanders at all. I get Hillary Clinton's emails all the time.
Not anymore. Ford and Rick, thanks so much, guys. Great to have you with us.
When Bernie Sanders gets to South Carolina, he hits a brick wall.
He very well may be. We're keeping an eye on
Another
Nevada.
prediction.
There's a lot of money on that. Thanks, guys.
Well, if there's one thing Donald Trump doesn't lack, it's money. So why does he think it's okay to refuse to pay for some things? Well, a microphone might have something to do with it. Plus, we want to hear what you think about the late actor Alan Rickman. You can tweet us at Newsmax Now or leave us a comment on our website.